What if I told you Russia's disaster at Kursk cost them 77,000 troops in a single campaign? That's not just a statistic. It's a catastrophe that rewrote the rules of war. Ukraine's daring cross-border offensive exposed cracks in Moscow's war machine that no amount of propaganda could hide. If you've been following this conflict and wondering whether Russia's red lines were real or bluff, this battle gave us the answer. Today, we'll break down how deception, strategy, and sheer audacity turned Kursk into the Kremlin's nightmare. Numbers that stunned the world. When the dust of Kursk began to settle, the numbers painted a grim picture. Ukraine's commander-in-chief Oleksandr Syrsky revealed the toll 1 year later. More than 77,000 Russian soldiers were killed or wounded in this single region. That figure also included around 4,000 North Korean troops who fought under Russia's flag. To place this in context, Russia lost fewer men during the entire First Chechen War. Kursk, a region inside Russia that should have been secure, turned into a graveyard. The destruction did not stop with manpower. Ukrainian strikes wiped out over 7,000 pieces of Russian military hardware. Among them were tanks, armored carriers, artillery, even helicopters, and an aircraft. Each loss represented months of production and massive sums of money. Russia's defense industry could not replace such equipment at the speed the war demanded. Kursk exposed Moscow's fragile war machine in cold, undeniable figures. How it began. The deception phase. 2 days before the main attack, shadows moved across Kursk under the cover of night. Small Ukrainian teams slipped quietly over the border. Each group had only 6 soldiers, but they carried out a mission far greater than their size suggested. They hid in woods and villages, watching, listening, and mapping out the weak points of Russian defenses. Their goal was not to fight, but to prepare the battlefield. This was not the heavy armor charge that Russian doctrine expected. It was patience and silence, built on deception. By the time Russia even realized foreign troops were inside its borders, detailed reconnaissance had already been done. Supply routes, artillery nests, and communication lines were identified. The ground was set for the storm to come. This phase showed the difference between rigid defense and agile planning. Kursk was about to learn that small, quiet steps can lead to a massive strike. Breaking through Russia's defenses, at dawn on August 6th, the quiet gave way to thunder. Ukrainian forces launched the main assault with speed that stunned even seasoned analysts. Instead of crashing against fortified lines, they slipped through soft spots revealed by earlier scouting. Russian border troops, mostly untrained conscripts, were overwhelmed before they knew what was happening. Within days, Ukrainian units spread deep into Kursk. Villages fell one after another, supply depots went up in flames, and transport routes were cut. At the height of the push, Ukraine held close to 500 square miles of Russian land. For Moscow, this was a nightmare. Their carefully built defensive system was based on assumptions that no longer held. What was meant to stop an armored wave could not handle flexible raids and rapid movements. The breach at Kursk was more than a tactical win. It was proof that Russia's border security was built on sand. Timing, strategy, and preemption. The summer of 2024 had not gone well for Moscow. Russian offensives in the north had already cost them thousands of men and equipment with little gain. At the same time, Ukrainian intelligence detected that Russia was preparing another push towards Sumy and Kharkiv. Instead of waiting for the blow to fall, Kyiv made a bold choice. Strike first, strike inside Russia, and force the enemy to react. This decision flipped the battlefield. Troops that were meant to move against Sumy were suddenly called back to defend Kursk. President Zelensky later stated that nearly 60,000 Russian soldiers were pulled from Donbass and nearby fronts to plug the hole. The shift left other sectors stretched thin. Pressure dropped in Zaporizhia as Russian artillery units vanished. Even brigades from Kaliningrad, a region vital for Russia's defense against NATO, had to be moved east. Kursk was not only a raid, it was a trap that pulled Russian strength away from everywhere else. Russia's sluggish response. For weeks after the incursion, Moscow looked paralyzed. Counterattacks came late and without a clear purpose. Units moved in different directions, often with little coordination. Local commanders waited for instructions that never came in time. The rigid chain of command, built for planned offensives, could not keep pace with a fluid and shifting battlefield. It took nearly a month before Russia gathered enough strength for what they called a serious counteroffensive. Even then, the attacks lacked precision and failed to push Ukraine out. The longer the delay, the stronger Ukrainian positions grew inside Kursk. Soldiers dug in, supply lines adapted, and drones hovered constantly over Russian movements. Only after several months and heavy reinforcements did Russia begin to claw back ground. But the slow reaction had already revealed something deeper. The structure of Moscow's military, proud of control from the top, was helpless when speed and flexibility were required. Shattering the red lines. From the first days of the war, the Kremlin warned of nuclear fire if its borders were crossed with Western weapons. Those warnings shaped every NATO decision, limiting what Ukraine could do. Kursk changed that overnight. Ukrainian tanks, many supplied by Europe, rolled through Russian towns. Western vehicles carried supplies across the border, yet no missiles of mass destruction were launched. No nuclear alarms sounded. The silence spoke louder than words. Putin's threats, repeated for years, were shown as empty echoes. If he would not strike when his own land was occupied, then what weight did his other warnings carry? Western leaders quickly took note. In the months that followed, restrictions on long-range strikes began to loosen. ATACMS missiles, Storm Shadows, and German hardware were soon allowed for use against Russian targets. Kursk had broken the spell. The myth of untouchable red lines collapsed, and with it, the fear that had kept many nations hesitant to act. Why Kursk was the target? Kursk was not chosen at random. Russian planners had stripped their border regions to fuel bigger offensives elsewhere. Experienced contract soldiers were sent to Donbass and Zaporizhia, leaving behind conscripts and territorial units with little training. These men were poorly equipped, often carrying outdated rifles and lacking proper armor. For many, the assignment felt like guard duty, not a real battlefield. When seasoned Ukrainian units crossed the line, the difference was overwhelming. Veteran soldiers met raw recruits. Skilled commanders faced officers who had never managed live combat. Entire positions collapsed within hours. Some Russian soldiers surrendered quickly, seeing no reason to die for a post they had been unprepared to hold. Over 1,000 were captured, many giving up valuable details about Russian deployments. Kursk showed the cost of neglect. By underestimating the border, Russia gave Ukraine a weak point that turned into a massive opportunity. The North Korean disaster. By October 2024, Moscow faced such pressure that it called on North Korea for help. About 11,000 soldiers arrived, labeled as elite by Pyongyang. In practice, their presence only deepened the crisis. Within 3 months, nearly 40% were killed or wounded. The casualty rate was shocking, averaging dozens of losses each day. Their training was built on outdated tactics. Many attacks relied on massed charges, ideas more suited to the Korean War than modern battlefields. Against Ukrainian drones and precision strikes, these methods became suicidal. Language barriers made matters worse. Russian officers could not issue detailed orders, and coordination often broke down. Confusion led to friendly fire incidents and failed maneuvers. The North Koreans also lacked proper weapons. They depended on Russian gear that was old and unreliable. Morale dropped fast as squads were destroyed from the sky without warning. Instead of showing unity, this foreign deployment revealed desperation. Kursk became proof that Russia was willing to risk humiliation just to hold its soil. Ukraine's tech edge and psychological warfare. Technology, logistics, and adaptation defined the later stages of the Kursk campaign and the move into Belgorod. Ukrainian drones and electronic systems gave unmatched vision and precision, turning battlefields into constant surveillance zones. Aid centers in captured towns shaped the information war. showing a humane side that Moscow could not match. Yet beneath these successes lay serious limits. Kursk relied on a single supply road through Sumy, creating a dangerous bottleneck. By early 2025, losses on both sides were heavy, with Ukraine forced into a controlled pullback. These lessons shaped the Belgorod strike. This time, Ukraine chose a ground with open fields and better road links. Long-range strikes cleared depots first, and pincer-style moves forced Russian units to retreat. Unlike Kursk, the goal was disruption, not occupation. Together, the two campaigns showed Ukraine could learn quickly, using each setback to sharpen its future operations against a larger foe. The Kursk invasion was more than a raid across a border. It was a warning shot to the world that modern wars are not decided by numbers alone. Russia lost tens of thousands of men and huge amounts of equipment, while its red-line threats collapsed in plain sight. Ukraine showed that bold moves, clever planning, and new technology can rewrite the rules of battle. 1 year later, Kursk still echoes as proof that even a weaker nation can challenge a stronger one. The question now is simple: how long before the next line is crossed again?